Okay, welcome everyone. Let's get started. I just want to make sure that everyone can hear me and see my screen. Can you hear me and see my screen? Awesome. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to mute you all. So today's topic is how to find awesome deals. We're going to focus on off-market pre-foreclosures, okay? So, but before we get started, I want to make sure that we understand the foreclosure process. Okay, so when you understand the timeline of the foreclosure process, you are going to be able to profit from it, not only yourself, but you're going to be able to help somebody else, like the distressed owner. Okay, so before I show you this slide, I will quickly tell you what the foreclosure is. So number one, somebody gets a loan from the loan, right? And then for whatever reason, that individual is unable to pay the mortgage on a monthly basis. So what the bank is going to do is they're going to come after the owner. And if the owner eventually doesn't come current with the loan, then the owner's home is going to be auctioned off at the judicial court, okay, in the county. And then at that point, if nobody buys the property, then that property becomes the bank's asset. So we call that shadow inventory. Now, something that you need to understand that is very important is that in the United States, there are two types of foreclosures. One is judicial and another one is non-judicial. Make sure you make a note of that, judicial and non-judicial. So Illinois happens to be a state that is judicial. There are 21 states that are judicial. So what does that mean? So what that means is that the court establishes the steps that the bank needs to follow to be able to foreclose on the owner. Therefore, the foreclosure process in judicial states like Illinois can take up to 24 months, so 2 years, okay? Whereas non-judicial states, and non-judicial states are primarily located on the West Coast, like California, Arizona, and then non-judicial states are primarily on the East Coast. So this explains why the California market is going to rebound a lot quicker than the Chicago market, for instance, or the Florida market, because Florida, it's also a judicial state. So the foreclosure process is ruled by the court. Therefore, those states can take up to 2 years before the bank can foreclose on the owner. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Why is that important? Well, number one, because when we look at the pre-foreclosures, we've got to look at the filing date, okay? The filing date is a crucial indicator to tell you the stage of the foreclosure, okay? Because when the bank files a lawsuit against the owner, it's in pre-foreclosure. So it's just the initial state. But then as time goes on, closer to the 1 year mark, then the property is going to be scheduled to go for auction, okay? And that is the second timeline that you need to be aware of, and that is crucial, and I would say the most important timeline, okay? Half the way through the foreclosure. So for instance, if the filing date is done today, right? February, towards the end of February. So add about maybe 9 months or so. So by the end of the year, that property will be scheduled to be auctioned off if the owner has not come current with the loan. Okay, so keep that in mind. But now I'm going to show you the slide to explain to you in more detail what those timeframes are and why they're so important. Okay, so I want to make sure that you can see my screen. Okay, I'm checking. Can everyone see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. So thank you. So I'm going to go to the next slide. Okay, so this is the foreclosure process in a nutshell, okay? Make sure that if you have a camera, take a picture of this slide because this is one of the most important slides that I'm going to be showing today, okay? So again, if you have a phone with you, please take a picture of this slide. It's crucial that you understand the process, okay? So The way it works is, as secret number one, friends, is we are going to be focusing on properties that have high equity. So what does that mean? What that means is on the upper left corner, we have the example, right? So the after repair value of our property is 150,000. This is just an example. So after all the repairs are done, we can sell that property for 150,000. Okay. Now the owner owes 50,000 on the property. Okay. So what that means is that we have equity of about 100,000. So what we're going to be looking for is properties that have equity of at least 50%. So what that means is the owner owes 50,000. So the property must be worth, after all the repairs are done, 100,000. Okay, so that's secret number one. Okay, make sure you make a note of that. We're going to be targeting only high equity properties. Now, why high equity? Okay, the reason why is because you're going to be able to have more leverage when you negotiate with the owner. Why? Because the owner is going to be more willing to work with you and for you to get a better deal on any given property, okay? Because there are other cases where it's the other way around, so that there's very little equity, or in fact, it could be negative. So typically, maybe if you've heard the concept of underwater, right? Like a lot of people are underwater. So what does that mean? That means that they owe more than what the property is worth. So they might owe, let's reverse their roles. Now they owe probably 150,000 and the property is worth 100,000. So the owner is underwater by 50,000. Okay, and those properties could also be found in the foreclosure process, okay, but we're going to stay away from them. There's a strategy that we could use to help the owner, which is a short sale, okay? That's in the event that the owner wants to sell the property, okay? But we're going to talk about that in just a second once we get into the auction section, okay? Just keep that in mind. We're going to be focusing again on high equity properties. So the first step is that the owner is going to miss a payment, okay? And then after about 60, 90 days, then the bank is going to be sending lots of notices, making lots of phone calls to the owner, requesting payment, right? So if the owner is unable to make payments for whatever financial reason, then the bank will officially file a lawsuit against the owner. And then in legal terms, you're going to see lien pending. Okay, so what that means is that the owner is officially in foreclosure. And then at that point, we are going to get notified, right? So in the system, in ChicagoDealVault, we are going to have all the pre-foreclosures that are coming in the market. So we update the data on a daily basis, Monday through Friday. So once we find the pre-foreclosures, again, we're going to be able to, in this case, the example that I show you, if the owner owes 50,000, okay, we're going to need to pay about 10%, add 10% to the 50,000 on fees and then back payments, okay? So let's assume that we're going to need to pay off at least 55,000, and then we are going to need to pay off the owner some sort of relocation package, okay, for the owner to settle somewhere. So at that point, that's going to be determined based on the condition of the property. So if the condition of the property doesn't require much rehab, then you can make a fair offer to the owner. So in this case, let's assume that the property is worth 150,000. So you're going to pay 55,000, okay, just to the bank. And then if you pay the owner 20,000, right, just relocation for the owner to move on with her life, then you're going to be paying about 75,000. Okay, that's assuming that you need to do a light rehab, light to sort of medium rehab. Okay, so that you have enough room to make a profit for either buy and hold, fix and flip, or maybe a wholesale. Okay, so at that point, the key is that you are going to be paying about 50 cents on the dollar. So we're going to be paying 75,000 on a property that could be worth 150,000. Okay. And then the next step is that as time goes on, so 3, 4, 5, 6 months. So at the 6-month mark, I would say between the 6th to the 9th month mark, then the court will officially issue, it's called the notice of trustee sale. So what does that mean? What that means is that the court is going to say, okay, you've had about 6 to 9 months to come current with the loan. You have not been able to come current with the loan. Therefore, we need to sell the property at auction, at the judicial auction in the county, to collect the proceeds from the sale and pay off the outstanding creditors and the debt. Okay, so at that point, again, you are going to get notified about that when the court decides that the properties are going to go for auction. And what's really, really powerful, friends, about this process is that we need to look for properties that are going to go for auction in the next at least 40 to 60 days, okay? 45 to 60 days, so a month and a half to 2 months. Why? Because that's gonna give you enough time to not only connect with the owner, but be able to finance the deal, okay? So there's a question. Once the notice of trustee sale happens, can investors still step in and prevent an auction? Definitely. So that is my favorite lead pipe. Why is that? Because think about this. I'm going to give you the other scenario, right? That let's say the auction is today. Let's just for sakes assume that the auction is going to happen today for that property at the judicial courthouse in whatever county the property resides. So at that point, you're going to be able to see a lot of investors, right, going to this courthouse. They're going to fill up the room, and guess what? They are going to be bidding on that property. So what's going to happen is that many, if not most of those investors are going to be paying cash for the property. Not only that, but they're going to be buying sight unseen. That means they have not been able to see the property from the inside, because most likely that property is still occupied, okay? Not only that, friends, but the problem when you're in a room bidding for a property is that the likelihood of you overpaying for the property is going to be big, right? Because it's all based on emotions. You know, I want to get the property. So somebody bids 5,000, and then you add up another 3,000, and next thing you know, you have overpaid for the property if you happen to win the auction. So that is not the place where you want to be, okay? We want to prevent that case, because a lot of people have lost a lot of money at the judicial auctions, right? So what we like to do is just think about it. Imagine that you are notified that you know of every single property that is going to go for auction, but 45 to 60 days before. Can you imagine the power of that? So let me just tell you what the power of it is. The power of it is that you are going to be able to connect directly with the owner, okay? 45 to 60 days before. So the owner at that point is going to be extremely motivated to take action, especially if the owner has a lot of equity. Why? Because if the owner does nothing, guess what's going to happen? The owner is going to, number one, lose the property for sure. Number two, lose the equity. So that 100,000 equity, guess what, friends, is gone out the window. And number three, the owner's credit is going to get ruined. So at that point, the owners are extremely motivated to take action. Okay, so that is why this is one of the most powerful lead pipes. And then obviously, and the most important is that you are going to be able to finance the deal, okay? That is why we're targeting properties that are going to go for auction in 6 to 8 weeks. Why? Because we're going to have enough time to go inside the property, do an inspection, attorney's review. Not only that, but we're going to be able to finance the deal, okay? Using an asset-based lender, like a hard money lender, private money lender, that is just focusing on the asset itself. Okay, so that is the power of it. And most importantly, guess what? You won't have any competition at that point, right? Because you are reaching out to the owner ahead of time. You are not meeting with other investors, bidding in a room, right? So at this point, again, you can get an awesome deal. You can get the deal for $75,000 with the same formula, right? Pay off the outstanding debt plus make sure you add 10% on top of it, and then a relocation package that you negotiate with the owner. That is the power of upcoming auction. So we're going to call this lead pipe upcoming auction. And then finally, let's assume that we didn't take action as investors and the property went for auction at the judicial court. So at that point, many things can happen at the auction. So it could be sold to a third party. So that means that the property gets sold to an investor, right? The other one is that nobody buys the property. So then the property goes back to the bank, okay? And then the bank can do anything with it. Another one is that the auction can get postponed or canceled. So when can the auction get postponed or canceled? If the owner is, for instance, underwater and they want to pursue a short sale, okay? So what they need to do in order to stop the auction is file for bankruptcy, okay? They don't need to follow through the proceedings to file for bankruptcy. They just need to file the initial filing for bankruptcy. That will immediately stop the auction. So the auction is going to be canceled. And then at that point, the owner can try to negotiate a short sale with the bank. Okay, and then the other one is obviously postponed. That means that when they file for bankruptcy, the bank may decide to do a short sale, so the auction will just get postponed, okay, while the short sale is in process. But now let's assume that nobody at the auction bought the property. So what's going to happen is immediately that property is going to go back to the bank, okay? So then we call that shadow inventory. Why shadow? Because it's technically hidden, right? Nobody knows but you that this property has gone to the bank's asset. So at this point, there are two secrets, okay? We're going to be targeting high equity properties and also small banks. Why small banks? Because if you target large banks want to move inventory bulk, okay? So they have a foreclosure department. They are not going to be selling you or me or anybody just one or two properties. They want to sell off a bulk of properties, okay? So I'm talking about like the Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, like really large banks, okay? And then at that point, when you reach out to the bank, we're going to go look at some examples. You will end up paying a little bit more, not the $75,000. At this point, you might be paying more. Why? Because the bank has already incurred a lot of fees in the foreclosure process. Not only that, but the bank has eaten up all the holding expenses for about a year and a half or 2 years. Therefore, the bank is going to command a higher offer. So you won't be able to make it with just paying $75,000 in this case when the property is worth $150,000. So at least you're going to be paying $90,000, which is still better, right? If you show up at the auction, the example that I gave is $110,000, right? When you overbid and overpay for the property, but that could go even higher. So if the property becomes shadow inventory, you're going to be paying more, but still you can get great deals, okay? And then what's going to happen, right? The bank or the banks are not in the business of real estate, so they're in the business of lending. So what the banks are going to do is they're going to dispose of those properties. So how are they going to dispose of those properties? So they're going to do two things. They're going to give the properties to REO brokers, okay? So for instance, some of the top REO brokers are Ryan Smith, Joe Mueller is another big one. And then the bank will eventually send these properties to the auctioning platforms. Okay, so like the four biggest auction websites are Hubzu.com, Auction.com, Hudson and Marshalls, and Williams and Williams. So those are the main auctioning platforms. And the two biggest ones are Hubzu and Auction.com. Okay, and again, at that point, it is similar to the judicial auction, but the difference is that it's just an online auction, and some of these websites will allow you to finance the deal, okay? Some others will not, so they will only take cash offers. It also depends on the condition of the property, but for the most part, you are expected to, have a big down payment, at least 20-25% down payment for those websites that will allow you to finance the deal. Not only that, but here, how do the websites make money, right? The Hubzu, the auction. So they call it a buyer's premium, which is about 5%. It could go up to 10%, but usually the average is 5%. That's how those auctioning platforms make money. They charge a buyer's premium. So the premium is paid by the investor, by the buyer. And then finally, the REO broker will put it in the MLS, right? So once the property hits the MLS, again, it's just going to be a war, right? It's going to be very competitive, especially if it's a great property that doesn't need much rehab. You're going to be paying like $145. So friends, the lesson and the message here is that we've got to understand the time frame of the foreclosure process. So just 3 stages that you need to know: the pre-foreclosure, the upcoming auctions, and the shadow inventory. Those are the only 3 places where you need to come in. If you come in at any other point in the transaction, you will pay more, okay? Just like in the examples given above. So having said that, friends, let's just dive into the system and find some great, awesome deals. And then we're gonna quickly analyze one property and determine whether we should pursue and then reach out to the owner, okay? So let's just go to the system. So we're gonna go on there. Let me see, I believe there's a question. So there's a question on the line. So as long as you pay it off with the bank before the auction date, we're good. Exactly. So we've got to pay off the loan before the auction date, and then we're gonna be good. So we make an agreement, since the owner still has possession of the property, we make the owner sign the sales contract, okay? And then we present that to the bank. So the bank obviously doesn't want to go through the foreclosure process, so they just want their money. So we're gonna pay off the loan, and then whatever is left, obviously, is for the owner. So that's the way to approach it. Okay, is there another question on the line? So another question is, can you explain the short sale portion some more? Okay, so that's a great question. So I'm gonna go back to the slide and then talk about the short sale. Okay, so short sale, when do you do a short sale? The short sale is done when the owner is underwater, okay? So what that means is that they owe more than what the property is worth. And as you can imagine, back in 2008, 2009, a lot of people were buying left and right, correct? Because the banks were just giving away money and the prices were inflated. So when the crash came, then what happened is that the owners had a big mortgage, right? A big loan. And then the property values all of a sudden plunged to the ground. So a property that was worth maybe $300,000 and the owner had a loan of $200,000, now it's worth only $150,000, half of it, right? So the property is now worth $150,000 and the owner owes $200,000. So guess what happens? The owner is underwater by $50,000. So at that point, what the owner needs to do, 2 options. So if the owner wants to keep the property, then the owner needs to work out it's called a loan modification. What that means is that the bank will work out some sort of arrangement that the owner is going to pay a lower interest rate. Okay, that is option number 1 if the owner wants to stay in the property. If the owner doesn't want to stay in the property, if the owner just wants to get rid of the property, then the bank needs to authorize the short sale. So what that means is you're gonna be, it's called, you give the keys in lieu of the deed, right? So just give the keys, and then the bank is gonna take over the property. But this is the important thing, that the bank needs to authorize the short sale, okay? Excuse me, friends, for a second. Okay, friends, sorry. So the second option is that the owner doesn't want to stay in the property. Okay, so what the bank needs to do is the bank needs to authorize a short sale. And what's really important here is that the bank has the option to issue a deficiency judgment against the owner. So what that means is that, okay, so the property is now worth $150,000. So obviously the most they can get for the property is $150,000. Okay, but the owner owes the bank $200,000, so he is in the sink for $50,000. So the bank has the option to issue a deficiency judgment for $50,000 against the owner. So that's going to go into the owner's credit, and eventually the owner needs to pay that amount, the $50,000. Okay, so the owner will pretty much ruin their credit for the next 7 years. Okay. So that is the process for the short sale, and usually the short sale takes quite some time, because what the owner needs to do is they need to put the property for sure in the MLS to try to get the most from the property. But even then, right, the owner will still owe more than what the property is worth. So that's just a sad story of many people that have gone through short sales, right? Because not only do they lose all the property, the equity, but they also ruin their credit when they do a short sale. But many banks will not file a deficiency judgment against the owner. So that is just the process of the foreclosure. Okay. So now let's go ahead and find some great deals. So there are other questions. So when foreclosure happens before auction or after, there's no foreclosure on the chart. At foreclosure, owners loses all the rights, or still auction happens. Okay, so I'm not understanding, Paresh, the question. When the foreclosure happens before the auction, after?
Hugo, there is no foreclosure on your chart, so I don't know. The owner loses the right when auction happens or when foreclosure happens.
Oh, okay. So the owner remains in title of the property until the auction, right? So at the auction, if the property is sold off to a third party, okay, so at that point, pretty much the owner loses the property at the auction right here. At the auction in the judicial court, they lose possession of the property. And then the next step is that they're going to give the owner some time to vacate the premises. And eventually, if the owner doesn't vacate the premises, guess what's going to happen? They're going to need to evict the owner, okay? But then at the judicial auction, that's officially when the owner loses possession of the property. So that is why before the auction happens, the owner is still entitled to the property. Therefore, when you make an offer, guess who you need to go to? You have to go through the owner, okay? The bank needs to authorize the transaction, the short sale in this case, but you've got to go through the owner because the owner is still entitled of the property, okay? Does that make sense, Paresh?
Foreclosure happens in a court, right?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
it's a
then they order for auction.
Exactly. Here
Okay,
at the
so it's
notice of
before.
trustee sale, at
Okay.
the 6 to 9 month mark, then the court is going to issue the official date for the auction. Okay. So that is the foreclosure process that the owner went in when they failed to make the payment. So another question. I see properties where the filing date is a year ago. Why would that be? Are these properties worth pursuing? Okay, so that's a great question. So friends, we're going to be finding some properties in which the filing date was about a year ago. So if since Illinois is a judicial state, that means that foreclosure process can take up to 2 years, okay, before the owner loses the property to the bank. So if the filing was about a year ago, guess what? That filing of that property is going to be very close to going to the judicial auction, because usually it's from the 6th through the 9th month that the bank will issue the auction date. So if the filing is about a year ago, it's going to be probably a great property, great owner to go after. Okay, so we're going to find some examples. Great question, Paul. We're going to find some examples in which the filing date was about a year ago. So if there are no further questions on the process, because I want to make sure that you understand the process, okay? And we're going to be focusing on high equity properties. We will not focus on zero equity properties, because for that matter, we need to do either one of two things. We either need to do a loan modification if the owner wants to stay in the property, but unless we're a mortgage broker, we don't make any money, right? We can help the owner, but we're not going to make any money if we help the owner do a loan modification. But if you're a mortgage broker, then you can make money, right? When you do a loan modification. If the owner wants to sell the property, then they need to pursue a short sale. But at that point, since the owner is in foreclosure, they need to file for bankruptcy to stop the foreclosure, to stop the auction, buy some time, and then pursue the short sale, okay? Okay, sounds good. So let's dive into the system right now and then find some awesome deals off market. So let's focus on the pre-foreclosure. So secret number one is that you have to have high equity, okay? So we're going to use as rule number one is we're going to target properties with equity of over 50%, okay? And then the second thing that we're going to use is we're going to use the filing date, okay? So this is an important filter, the filing date. Why is this important? So you want to filter properties that are that went into foreclosure recently. So I would say to not go back beyond 6 months, okay? So we can put a range. So let's do the search without the range, and then we're gonna put the range. So I need for some of you to give me some cities that we can do a search on. So if you can type them in or tell me.
Norwich.
Okay. You said Norwich?
Berwyn.
Oh, Berwyn. Okay, Berwyn. Okay, so I have some messages. Berwyn, Evanston, Plainfield. Okay, so Evanston.
Forest Park.
Plainfield, Forest Park. Okay, Des Plaines. Anything else?
Norwich.
No, Norwich. It's a neighborhood. So that's not a city. So it's in Chicago. Norwich is in Chicago.
Oh.
Yeah. No.
What about Franklin Park?
Yeah, Franklin Park. Yeah, we have it. Okay, so let's just go with those. And then, so let's see how many we find. So I'm going to click on search. And then we're going to add some filters. And then also, if you remove some filters, then it will make it, we'll just get like a ton of listings. Okay, so we got 90. Okay, now before we add the filing date, let's just look at the filing date. So right here, you have the filing date. So let's just look at this example, the first one, okay? So the first one, oh, I happened to click on it in plain field. So let me go back. So the first one was filed back in September 2017. So that is about 13 months or so. So this property in Plainfield, if we will soon go to the judicial auction, okay? Because it's been almost a year and a half, okay? So we want to look like, for instance, let's just look at the this one. So that was filed late last year. So it was in October last year. So this is a fairly new foreclosure. So what is the difference, right? When you approach somebody that just recently went into foreclosure, let's just look at this deal, okay, in Plainfield. So this was filed back in October, right? So at this point, it's been about 3.5 months or so, maybe 4 months. So the owner might still not be so motivated to take action, right? So they are hopeful. They might still be in denial, right? Of the fact that they're in foreclosure. So at this point, you might find some owners that may not be, you know, responsive to either when we reach out to them, either via mailing campaign or when we reach out to them directly via cell phone, email, text. So that's something that you need to be aware of. Okay, so there's a question. It says, so how do we find out when a judicial auction will be? Okay, so the way to find out is, right now, this was filed recently, right? So the way to find out is to go to the upcoming auctions. So that's the second lead pipe. So you can go to the upcoming auctions, and those are the properties that have already an auction date scheduled. Okay, so this is how you find that out. And now, if you have a particular property, right, that you want to find out the status, then you can do a power search on the property. Okay, so let me give you an example. So for instance, let's take this property. No, I'm going to take an older one. So a property that went to the filing date was old. So let me just pick this one in, again, Plainfield. Okay, so this is a good example. Okay, so the filing date was back in September 2017. So this has been almost a year and a half. So what I want to know is whether this property has gone for auction or not. Okay, so I can take this address. Okay, so we have two options. We can do a power search, okay, on that particular property, and we're gonna find everything on this property. Or you can go straight to the upcoming auctions just to find out if that property has been scheduled. So here I'm gonna put in the address, and okay, so you can just even put the number. You don't need to put the street, just the number. We're gonna find it. So here I did a search, and boom, sure enough, it came up. Okay, so I'm gonna open this listing, and right here, so I'm gonna close that. So now we are in upcoming auctions, right? I did a search on the same property, and then here it came. Okay, so I'm gonna click on it, and boom. So the filing date was about a year and a half ago. So now the auction date, in fact, friends, the auction date is gonna happen in about 2 weeks. Yeah, 2 or 2.5 weeks. Yeah, if I look at the calendar, yeah, in about yeah, 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, and then we have the date, the time, and the location. So it's going to be at the Will County Courthouse. Okay, so in Joliet. So you know the location for this property. So why did I look for this property on their upcoming auctions? Because the filing date was old. So that was the question, Paul, that you had. So what happens if the filing date is about a year old? So if the filing date is over a year, make sure you look for it either in the power search right here or in the upcoming auction, okay? Because remember, the foreclosure process can take up to 2 years, but it could be less than that, no more than 2 years, about a year and a half to 2 years. So if the filing date was about a year ago, you can be sure that you can potentially find it right here in upcoming auctions. So friends, while we have this property on the screen, let's just quickly analyze these. Because if this is a good deal, guess what happens? We have enough time to buy this property. So let's just quickly run the numbers. Well, before I jump into that, I want to make sure that you understood what we just did, right? So the filing date was about older than a year, right? Almost a year and a half. Therefore, we looked in the upcoming auctions, and sure enough, it's scheduled to go for auction right here. Boom. So that is why it is very important that you filter. When you're looking for foreclosures, you don't want to go beyond a year, right? So you want to put your range. So what's going to be the range? So you can go back as far as 6 months. Maybe you want to go from September all the way till maybe today, right? So today is maybe February 28th. Okay, so from 90 properties that I'm looking in foreclosure, we're gonna go only to 7, okay? 7 properties that were filed for foreclosure in the last 6 months in these locations and that have over 50% equity, okay? So this is how you need to use this filtering. You've got to use the filing date, obviously your cities or counties, the equity. So these are awesome deals that were just recently filed. So these are properties that we've got to try to reach out to the owner, okay? But again, keep in mind that they might be in denial or that they might be hopeful that they can still get a good deal, but it's still worth it, friends, because eventually these owners may search for help, okay? And let me tell you something, only about 5% of the pre-foreclosures are in the MLS. So what does that mean? What that means is that, for instance, the owner of the property knows that eventually he's gonna lose his property. So he wants to sell the property to pay off the outstanding debt. And he knows he's got a lot of equity. So what the owner is gonna do is he may go to a broker, right? And the broker is gonna list the property, he's gonna put it in the MLS. And again, friends, that's sort of like too late, because once it hits the MLS, then you're gonna be paying premium prices and then everybody is gonna know about it. So it defeats the purpose, okay? But again, think of it, only 5% of the pre-foreclosures end up in the MLS. So, and then I can give you an example of a pre-foreclosure that ended up in the MLS right now. So there's another question. So the other question is, we have a couple of questions. Is how do we find out when the judicial auction will be? Okay, I just showed that. Do we want them closer to the auction date? Okay, so the question is, when you go to the upcoming auction lead pipe, you can also use the auction date filter, okay? But how close do you want the filter to be from the auction date? You need at least 45 to 60 days. So you can go as far as, so I'm gonna go maybe December 15 to today. Okay, I need about 2.5 months or so. So right here, and then we need to select some, just for simplicity, I'm gonna select a county. So I'm gonna go DuPage. All the filings in DuPage that are going to go for auction, okay, in the next, actually friends, here I got it wrong. So here the auction date, I need to put it from today, which is February 27th. Let me go to February 27th. And then we're gonna go in the future, right? So we wanna go about 60 days. So February, March, April 1st, or end of April. So I need to have, and then let's just find them. So here, let me see. Oh, I need to delete this property from there. So let's just find these. So these are the properties. So we got 182 properties that are going to go for auction between today and April 30th. So that's going to give you March, April. So that's going to give you 60 days. So you can easily connect with the owner and get the property closed in 60 days easily. Now, obviously, you still need to do the high equity filter. So let's just see how many we find. So we found 25 properties that have tons of equity that are going to go for auction in the next 60 days. So these are, again, awesome deals. So for instance, let's just pick one of them in maybe Lombard. Why is this an awesome deal? Because this property, the owner owes about $120,000, and this property could be worth $230,000, $240,000, right? And it's going for auction in the next 60 days. So it's going for auction. Well, this is going for auction like next week. So you don't have enough time. So you can skip that one. So in fact, I can change the filter, right? To go, I don't want anything that is going for auction in February or no sooner than maybe March, mid-March, okay? Actually, maybe, exactly, end of March. So that's a good example. So let's go end of March. So nothing that is going end of March. So we don't want to see anything that is going to go for auction until March and April. So you're going to have enough time. So we found all these deals. So let me just click on one of them. Let's say Woodridge. Okay, so this property is going to go to auction on April 18th. So you still have enough time, right? So you have about 45 days to reach out to the owner. In this case, Daniel, right? So he owes $28,000 and the property could be worth about $200,000. So this is an awesome deal. Now let's go down and see if there are any liens. Well, there are some liens. So this is something that you need to pay attention to, friends, when analyzing properties in the foreclosure. So here, this property has a lien of $128,000, okay, from Bank One, okay? So then that pretty much kills the deal, because 128 plus 28,000 owed to BMO Harris Bank, so that is about 150,000. And if the property is worth 200,000, you do not have enough room, right? So therefore, we can just get rid of this one. So I just gave you an example how important it is to go down and then look at the liens, other liens that the property may have, because you won't be able to buy the property free and clear with a clean title until you satisfy the liens and obviously pay off the outstanding loan amount. So again, this property we were looking at also has another lien for $25,000. So make sure you're going to add the liens, $25,000 plus whatever is owed right here. And then do the difference to make sure that you have enough equity. Therefore, friends, it's so crucial to go after properties with over 50% equity. So are there any questions right now? So what I just went over is just to make sure that you understand the key secrets for finding the deals. Make sure that you use the equity filter and then the filing date for the pre-foreclosure. You cannot go beyond 6 months in the past, okay? So look at filings that are no more than 6 months old, right? Because if you look for something that was filed about a year ago, guess what? Most likely there's an auction date already scheduled for it, okay? And then for the upcoming auctions, make sure that now you filter in the future. So here I can go, I don't care if the auction is in the future, maybe July, it doesn't matter, right? What matters is that I have enough time up front, right, to reach out to the owner. So when I open up the range, we're gonna get probably a few more properties, 8 properties. So Naperville, let's look at this example in Naperville. So this property is going to go for auction in June. So you have enough time, right, to reach out to the owner and get it on the contract and then pay off the outstanding debt if it makes sense. So let's look if there are any other liens. So no other liens. So the owner, William, he owes $108,000 on this property, and this property could be worth over $340,000. So friends, this is a great deal, right? He only owes about $100,000 for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, about 2,400 square feet. So that's a pretty big property. Okay, so there are some questions on the line. So the other question is, okay, so how much is the software? So this session is primarily for members. So this is a mastermind. Chris, if you can join, just send me your phone number and email, and then I'm gonna send you the invite for the next webinar. That's only for people who do not have access to ChicagoDealVault, because in this session is primarily for members. So it's a mastermind. So we give all the secrets, right? How you do it. So Chris, please reach out to me, send me your contact info. And then Jeff, so it seems like someone may be more motivated if their home was scheduled to go for auction. Absolutely. So if the property is scheduled to go for auction, they're going to be extremely motivated to take action. Why? Because they know they're going to lose the property unless they take action, right? So another question is, how does DealVault calculate equity? Okay, so the way we calculate the equity is based on the ARV. So we know that if the ARV for this property is, let's say, $350,000, and the owner owes about $100,000, so there's equity estimate. This is just an estimate of about at least $200,000, right? So it's the difference between what the property is worth and what the owner owes on the property. Okay, so that's what you need to understand on the time frames. Okay, so make sure that when you filter upcoming auctions, you're giving yourself enough room, right? So you don't want anything that is going for auction in 2 weeks, right? Or next week, because even if it's a great deal, guess what? You don't have enough time to not only reach out to the owner, maybe you can reach out to the owner, but you don't have enough time to fund it. At least the fastest you're going to be able to do it is 2 weeks, okay? Using a Harmony lender, the fastest is 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Why? Because in the first week, you can do the inspection, the attorney's review, and then you can order the appraisal in a rush. So an appraisal takes about a week to come back, actually 4 to 5 days. Give it a week, right? And then by the time they schedule the closing and everything is said and done, no less than 2 weeks, friends. So start looking for deals or properties that are going to go for auction maybe a month from today. And then the end date, I put sometime in July, right, in the summer. So you're going to have enough time, right, to take action, to finance the deal, reach out to the owner.
Hugo, what you talk at this time to owner?
Okay, so yeah, for instance, the Naperville property, right? So this property is going to go for auction in June. So it's about 4 months out, right? So it's a great timing, right? Because at this point, the owner knows that their property is going to go for auction. So they're going to be extremely motivated, right, to work with you. So the sooner you reach out to the owner, the better off you're going to be, okay? So yeah, don't wait, just reach out. And then again, to reach out to the owner, friends, we have the Skiptracing. So what I did is I click on the owner's name, and boom, we're gonna give you for William. Whoa, we have their William's email, mobile, phone number. So in fact, friends, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna call William. Okay. So are any of you on the line interested in Naperville? Any of you interested in Naperville? I mean, Naperville it's an A area. It's an awesome area.
Absolutely, I'll take it.
Okay, perfect. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna call Williams right now. I'm gonna try the first phone number, and then so my objective is to introduce myself and try to make an appointment with William. So if any of you is interested, I'm gonna make the appointment for tomorrow if he answers the phone. Okay, so I'm pulling out my cell phone. So I'm gonna dial one of the cell phone numbers, mobile number, 630-768-9890. So I'm dialing right now. I'm gonna put it on the speakerphone.
Solutions.
Oh, hi. May I speak with William, please?
I think you might have the wrong number.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay, so the first number is not correct. I'm going to try the second one. 7788. So I'm dialing the second number.
Welcome to Verizon Wireless. The number you dialed has been...
Okay, so Verizon came up right now. So the other option is just to try all these numbers. But I think just right off the bat, Naperville is an awesome area. It's an A area, right? If he only owes 100,000, his property is worth over 300,000. He's got tons of equity, right? So these, just by looking at it, it's just a great deal. Assuming that it's not in a bad, like close to the river. So no, it looks, in the map, it looks pretty decent. So there are other questions on the line. So the question is there a way to find the owner's information? Yes. All you need to do is click on the owner's name and boom, we're going to give you, when you click on it, we're going to give you their email, all phone numbers, everything possible, even their previous addresses, everything that you can get to get in touch with the owner. And friends, if for whatever reason you're not able to connect with the owner via phone, text, or email, it's worth going to the property, right? Just go to the property, door knock, introduce yourself, and tell William that you are a real estate investor willing to help, that you understand that he's going through foreclosure process and that he's going to lose the property in the next 4 months. And then, in fact, you can use in the mailing campaign system that we have in the system, you see all these drop downs with auction 1, auction 2. Those are letters, right? If you decide to do mailers, but also you can use these letters as the script, right? When you get on the phone with William, or if you do door knocking, make sure that you use these scripts, right? To connect. Not only that, but in the training section, we have videos that will show you how to build rapport, create interest, understand the owner's motivation, and most importantly, get them to sign the contract.
Hey,
yes.
I got a question. How do you work around the liens? Like if that property had a lien, how do you work around it?
Okay, so the question is, if there are liens on the property, how do you satisfy those liens? So if it has liens, let me just give an example of it. I have one in my favorites. So this is a perfect example. So this property in Vernon Hills that I'm gonna pull up, I found it in the foreclosure process. So this property is in foreclosures. Jamie, he owes 126,000. Okay, but this is an example of somebody who reached out. Look at the filing date, back in July last year. But so he's still early on the foreclosure process. He doesn't have an auction date scheduled, but the owner reached out to a broker. So what the broker did is the broker put it on the MLS. Okay, so only 5% of foreclosures, you're gonna find them in the MLS. So look at this. So he owes 126, and there's another lien. Look at this. It says Century Town Condo Association. It doesn't have the dollar amount. But I got in touch with Jamie, again, through Skiptracing. So I called his mobile number and I spoke with him. And I said, okay, Jamie, how much do you own the property? So the payoff amount is very close to 126, but he owes 13,000 to the association. So we have to pay the 13,000 to the association so that they can remove the lien on the property. Otherwise, he will not be able to sell the property. You won't be able to have clear title on the property. So you've got to satisfy the creditors. So the owner is going to know who the creditor is, and they're going to be able to get the final payoff amount for whatever lien that is. But this is public record. So this owner reached out to the broker. So the broker, I'm going to go to my favorites again. I'm going to pull up the same property in the MLS. So look, the same property was posted about 9 days in the MLS. And guess why they listed it for 139? because if you do the math, it's 126 plus 13,000, that's 139. So they need 139 to be able to pay off the outstanding loan amount plus the association lien. So they're asking for 139. So this property is worth, I would say, about 180,000. And in fact, we can get it on the contract for 145. I spoke with the broker and she said, Hugo, we can put it together for 145. She's got multiple offers. Well, we can, if you guys are interested in this deal, it's in Vernon Hills. This is a townhome. If you're interested in Vernon Hills, take a picture or write. I'm going to send out the address. If you're interested in it, we can get it for 145. So I'm going to send this property to everyone on the line. Okay. If you're interested, we made a report with the broker, so we can get it for 145. So at 145,000, let me tell you the numbers. 145, you're going to be, if you buy and hold, you're going to be making about 440. And then if you fix and flip, you're going to be making about 18,000. And then you're going to have about, if you put 20,000 down, 20% down, you're going to have about 30,000 in the property. So those are the numbers. If you're interested, so it cash flows. You make money on the flip, and then, but you're going to have about 30,000, about 20,000, 30,000 in the deal. So if the numbers work for you, I mean, Vernon Hills, it's an A area. It's a very desirable area. The schools are amazing. So that's an example of a foreclosure that went into the MLS. Not only that, it's another example that you've got to satisfy the liens. Otherwise, the owner won't be able to transfer clear title to you, right, until the creditors are paid off. This could be a mechanics lien placed by a contractor. It could be an association lien. It could be a HELOC, which is a home equity line of credit. It could be just anything, right, from the village. It could be anything that if it shows here, you've got to make sure that you know how much that is and pay that off. Does that answer the question? Okay, so now the other question is, so if the phone numbers don't come up, right, for the owner, so there are some cases where no phone numbers are found. So I'm going to click on the second owner. So this one we found some phone numbers. So usually we get numbers. Let me see. Yeah, you see, unless we're doing an upgrade on the system, you may see nothing. But for the most part, we're gonna find something, right? If you see nothing, please send us a message to support at ChicagoDealVault, and then we're gonna look into that. Okay, another question. So at closing, you would have to satisfy the lien or before. So you have to satisfy the lien once you have the property under contract, right? One of the contingencies is that you are going to get clear title, right? So free and clear of any encumbrances on the property. So yeah, the liens have to be satisfied before closing on the deal, so that we get clear title on the property. Okay, please send me your phone and email. Okay, Chris, yeah, send me your phone and email. I'll give you more info on ChicagoDealVault. Okay, so are there any other questions, friends?
Didn't include the commissions on that one. They're selling it for the balance that's due to the bank and the liens, and if they're selling it for 139, they're going to be stuck still for costs and commissions.
Exactly. So at this point, the broker needs to pay out the buyer's commission, right? Because she put it on the MLS. So the owner will be losing money, right? Because he's just hoping he gets above asking price offer, right? To not only pay off the loan, pay off the association, but also pay the listing agent, because the listing agent needs to get paid all the expenses at closing. So the owner will be in the negative if he sells it for asking price. Therefore, you know, the Judy Cox, which is the listing agent, told me, Hugo, we can put it together for 145. So that will pay off for also her listing fees and some of the closing expenses. So 145 is the bare minimum. So friends, if the numbers make sense for you, let us know. So any other questions that you may have? So yeah, in this case, the numbers are tight. Okay, I'm gonna mute you all, friends. Mute all, okay. Okay, so that sounds great. Now, the last part that I wanna show you is the shadow inventory, okay? So these are the properties that went for auction. Now, nobody bought them, so now they are the bank's assets. Okay, so at this point, you can reach out to them, but remember, you have to reach out to small banks. So again, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pick a county, and then for the auction date, so these are the properties. I just want to see properties that went for auction. How about maybe last week? So I'm gonna put a range. So it's gonna be from, let's say, 16th of February till today. Today is the 27th. Okay, and then I'm gonna select DuPage and Kane County, and then I'm gonna search for high equity properties. Let's see how many, from date must be less or equal to date. Did I put it wrong? So February.
2020 you put.
Oh, yeah. I put the wrong year. Okay, that was, 2019, yeah. So it should be February. Okay, yeah, I put the wrong year. February, let's say 16. Okay, so now let's search. So February 16, 2019, let me put February 1st. Okay, so we got some properties. Yeah, we got 39. So let me just pick one of them. Let's pick this one in Aurora, for instance, to show you what this means. Okay, so here there's another question. If I'm a wholesaler, can I change the contingency for the, yeah, you can change the contingencies if you're a wholesaler. And then we have a 2-page contract. So we give you the contract, and that is in fact one of the contingencies. So here, when it says make offer off market, it has few contingencies that will allow you to get out of the deal, especially if you're a wholesaler. Another question is, how do you write the contract to reflect that liens are being paid off? The creditor is being paid off, and finally, the owner is getting a small portion. So we're going to have a session, Christopher, on getting properties on the contract, and we're going to cover all the details for making sure that you write it successfully with the right contingencies. But yeah, you won't be able to close on the property until all the liens are satisfied. So the attorney will make sure that you have a clear title and that all the creditors are paid off, so that the liens are obviously removed. But we're going to have a special session, Christopher, on it. So now let's quickly look at these properties that I said that I wanted to find out all the properties that went to auction, nobody bought them. So let's just quickly look at this example. We have, how many did we get? Let me go back to the shadow inventory. So we got 39 properties. Let's see if there's one in Naperville, since we're looking at Naperville. Nothing in Naperville. Okay, so, okay, fine, Aurora, it's close enough. So this property, the filing date, look at this. So the filing date was about 14 months. So again, the foreclosure process takes between a year and a half to 2 years. So it went to auction on the 21st of February. The starting bid was $239. I think the starting bid was too high. So why do I know that? Because in the system, we tell you how much the property is worth. So the property is worth between $230 to $257. So the starting bid was 239. So there's no possible way, friends. The numbers are too tight, right? It's impossible. So that is why they didn't sell the property. In fact, in the system, we're going to tell you, if you were to make an offer, you shouldn't pay more than 175 for this property for the numbers to make sense. So they started the bid at 239. That's way too much. And the reason why the starting bid was too high is because, look, the outstanding balance was about 200,000. What did I say? You've got to add 20%, I mean 10% or so. So if I bring the calculator, 200,000 plus 10% is 220. So the bank needs to get 220,000 plus some filing fees and so forth, attorney's fees. So that is why the starting bid was so high, because the bank is not only looking at how much money they need to recuperate, but they're also looking at how much the property is worth. So the bid was too high, therefore nobody bought it. So that's an example. So if you want to reach out to this bank, so in this case is US Bank. So US Bank is a fairly large bank. So you can give it a try and then reach out to the attorney, but it's going to be very difficult because these banks are large. They move bulk inventory. So if you reach out to the attorney, you want to find out what the lowest offer that they would accept would be, right? Not only that, but you may need to speak directly with the asset manager from the bank. So the attorney might give you that information. But again, you can give it a try, right? But our experience is that working with large banks, we're hitting ourselves against the wall, okay? So we are targeting small banks. So let's just quickly pull up another shadow inventory just to show you. Let's look at this Lyle property. So this went for auction again on the 21st. The starting bid, whoa, I don't know what this is. 28 million. Whoa. So here the outstanding balance was 40 million. So friends, this is a commercial. Look, that is why. So this must be like a strip mall or something. So we can compute numbers that big, friends. Nor do we have the money or the resources to take on that. So that was just an example of the things that you need to look at, especially the dates. And then, friends, we also have this shadow inventory. This is for primarily yearly members. So we have access to another shadow inventory that we get on a weekly basis. We get about 1,000 properties a week. So the beauty of this is that we can connect directly with the asset manager and we know how much they want for the property. And what's really powerful is that I can filter these just by hot deals. Like, give me all the properties that the bank wants, let's say 50,000 and the property is worth 100,000. So we have over 50% equity that are vacant and that's it. So give me those. And then we can buy these directly from the banks, and they could be large banks. So just for sakes, I'm gonna pull up one right here in Calumet City. Okay, so the bank will sell this property for 19,000, and we know this property could be worth about over 60,000. So if you're interested, we can pull this property before the bank sends this off to the auctioning platform. So it's just a very powerful way of buying properties directly from the bank. And this could be owned by large banks. Let me just for sakes click on the owner tab. So the owner tab, well, this may show the previous owner, or this may show the bank. Quest Investments. Okay, so this is not like a large bank. It's an investment firm. So this is who the owner of this property is, but they want 19,000 for this property, and this property is worth over 60,000. So like that, we found 133 deals that have tons of equity. So what that means is that you're paying 50 cents on the dollar. That's all it means. And then they are spread out in Illinois. We're getting some in Indiana. So look at these, tons of them in Chicago, and then we tell you if it's vacant. So again, this property, the bank wants 43,000. This could be worth about 100,000. but you have to do your due diligence, right? Because once we commit to buy this property, we're going to pull these from the bank before it goes to the auctioning platform. So you've got to be certain you want to move forward with it. If it's vacant, most likely we're going to have access to the property. So that's a good point, friends. Target vacant properties. If they're occupied, you're going to struggle with the funding. Even if it's asset-based, yeah, stay away from owner-occupied properties. They're just harder.
How to see the target properties, Hugo?
Okay, so if you're a yearly subscriber, you're going to have access to this shadow inventory right here called Target.
No, how to see that? I mean, if I want to see the property, how do I see that?
Oh, yeah, if you want to see the property, just send us a message.
Okay.
And then we'll let you know if it's available. So look at this. So we have a button right here that is inquiry. This is how we communicate with the asset manager. So I would say, is this available? Available.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll let us know if it's available. And if it's available, we'll get the code for it if there's a lockbox on it. And then you just need to go check it out very quickly and then do your analysis using DealVault. So yeah, just let us know.
And I don't have a filter for 50% in target inventory.
Okay, so if you don't have a filter, yeah, we're going to be, this is our master account. So we're going to be launching this very soon, maybe in the next week or so. So all members will have this filter available to you. But not only that, we send out an email with the hot deals out of that. So it looks like this. So you're going to get a spreadsheet with the hot deals. This is from the shadow inventory. And this shows the spread on the property. So the red column, we're going to flag the properties that have a potential profit spread of 75,000 or more, right, out of that inventory. So go off this list, right, because we're doing all the numbers for you. So we tell you how much the bank wants, how much the property could be worth, and this is the potential profit spread. And this is how much we suggest you should pay, no more than this amount. So look at this spreadsheet, Paresh. Because we give you all the numbers, all the analysis on it.
Thanks.
Yeah, this is very powerful. So friends, thank you for joining tonight. Please raise your hand if you learned something new tonight. Awesome, I see a lot of hands. Awesome, perfect, awesome. So yeah, Chris, I'm gonna have another webinar coming up in a few minutes. So make sure you send me your contact information so that you can join that webinar. So another question is, what is the extra 10% over amount owed for? Oh, those are fees to the bank, Paul. So those are fees. So if the bank has an outstanding balance of 100,000, most likely there are some fees on top of it for late fees and so forth. So add an extra 10%. Then if I'm annual member, where is the tab? Okay, so if you're an annual member, Jeff, and you don't see the target, the shadow inventory, please send us an email. We're gonna enable this tab because it's very powerful. Okay, Chris, thank you for sending me your email. I'm gonna send you the info and then hopefully you can join the next webinar, which starts in a couple of minutes. Okay, friends, thank you everyone for joining tonight. And please make sure you come to the event on Sunday. I want to stress this. It's going to be an amazing event this coming Sunday. So far, we have over 70 people registered. We're bringing, it's going to be very cool because we're bringing a lot of our preferred partners. We're bringing lenders. We're bringing an attorney, Gary Davidson. Frank Montre is going to be there. Joe Mueller, Dan Carlton, all the pro players in real estate are going to be there on Sunday. So I'm going to do a great presentation in the sense that when you join the mastermind, I only cover one topic, let's say foreclosures. Well, in that event on Sunday, we're going to do front to back. We're going to do the whole cycle from identifying hot markets to finding great deals, analyzing them, getting them on the contract, doing a wholesale. So it's going to be very powerful. And then at the end, we're going to do a speed networking event. Okay, so make sure you come on Sunday. I'm going to show on the screen where this event is. So if you go to our meetup, this event is going to be from 1 to 4. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to pull up this event right now on the screen. So if you go to, I'm going to put this, okay, it's right here. And my wife is going to stop by Frida Lila. So it's at 1 o'clock. It's in Oak Brook. So DoubleTree Hotel in Oak Brook. It's going to be from 1 to 4, so a 3-hour event. So far, we have 65 people registered, friends. So make sure you go. I'm going to send this link to everyone on the chat because you've got to make sure that you come to this event. It's going to be really, really powerful for networking and knowledge-wise, okay? So make sure you come. I just sent you the link. Make sure you register because we obviously have limited space in the room, so make sure you come to this event, okay? Hands-on, we're gonna show you how you can increase your net worth by 1 million. Okay, friends, again, thank you very much for joining tonight, and then I look forward to seeing you, all of you, on Sunday. Make sure you come to it, again, from 1 to 4. Okay, thanks everyone, and I will see you Sunday. And please make sure also you join next Masterminds next week. Okay, thank you. Yeah, go ahead, John.
Is this for DealVault members only?
Actually, we're bringing DealVault members and non-members. So this is gonna be the first time we're bringing everyone together. So it's gonna be very powerful. I'm also gonna invite some members from DealVault who are private money lenders. So they have tons of money, okay? So we're gonna bring those people as well. So it's gonna be very powerful. I'm gonna have Frank Montrose. When I talk about identifying hot markets, I'm gonna have Frank Montrose on the stage, just give his, his recommendations because he knows some of the areas in Chicago like no one else. So please make sure you come this coming Sunday, friends. At 1 p.m. at the DoubleTree Chicago in Oak Brook downstairs. Okay, thank you everyone for joining. I'll see you Sunday. Have a great evening.